Nagato. Got no father like I'm Naruto. Keep the blade on me, Ichigo. Who really wanna go toe for toe? GTR from Tokyo. Diamonds whipping up on the stove. Lucky man like a 4-leaf clove. Diamonds wanna go.
Hello everyone, my name is Nagato's Revenge and welcome back to my channel. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be showcasing on how to mod your PlayStation Portable in 2019. It's fairly simple on how to do this, and it works with the 1000 model, and I recently just got this one yesterday. It works with the 2000 model as well, and it also works with the 3000 model and also the PSP Go. However, if you do have the PSP Street E1000 model, it will not work for this process, so unfortunately this method doesn't work for that actual model of the PSP. But with that getting stated out the way, please be sure to follow my social medias right here so you know the latest hacking guides and tutorials from my channel. And as well, if you need any help or you just want to join my Discord, I'll have my official Discord link via right here on the screen, and you can join that. And everything I state in this video will be links in the description down below. But I just wanted to give a little intro via 101 on how to do this. So all you really need for this process is a PlayStation Portable, of course, a memory card of choice. So I'm using the Pro Duo one. You can also use the micro SD adapter as well. I have links in the description below on where to get those via from eBay or Amazon. And you also need a micro USB cable. So if you own a PlayStation 3, they came with these little micro USB cables. You could buy them from Amazon for like $1 or $2 or somewhere like that. But with all those prerequisites getting stated out the way, I'm going to go ahead onto the PC and showcase a little bit more of the core information for this tutorial, and as well on how to set this up. So I'll meet you guys there. Alright guys, since I'm back on the PC and now you could probably see it in the video, just some of the prerequisites on the screen, I'm just going to go ahead and reinstate those items, just due to the fact since you're doing a not a hardware modification but a software modification to your PSP, and just to avoid any confusion or bricks or any questions. That's why I'm going to just go over some stuff and tips before this process, just so everyone's on the same page and everyone can have a successful install for their PlayStation Portable. So of course you need a PSP model that includes the 1000, 2000, 3000 model, and also the PSP Go. So if you have any of those PSPs, no matter if the motherboard variant is different or when it came out, all of the models are compatible for this exploit. As well, you need a mini USB cable to basically to connect to your PC. So if you have a PS3 controller laying around, not controller but cable, you can use that for basically your PSP to plug into your PC. As well, you need the PSP Infinity firmware.zip file. That is basically all of the homebrew and also the custom firmware that we'll be installing onto our PlayStation Portables. I'll have a link in the description below for that file as well. And you'll need a Memory Stick Duo Pro or a micro SD PSP adapter, and either or is fine for this method as well. And just to showcase on the screen right here is just a visual of what PSPs are compatible, and then here is also the PSP that is not compatible, aka the PSP Street. So the model of this is a PSP-E1000. So if you do have this model of PSP, it's not compatible for this process, so you just want to stop watching right now and then go ahead and buy a PSP-1000 or 2000 or 3000 to do this process with, because I'm not too sure why it's incompatible. It probably will brick your system, or probably Sony has patched the method on how to do that via that way. As well, here's just another slideshow where to get these memory cards or SD adapters, and I do advise it's probably even cheaper as well. I'll have links in the description below, but the dual slot adapter or just the regular one is like $7 on Amazon, and I recently just checked as of yesterday on July 12th 2019, and a micro SD could run you up to like a 64 gigabyte, like $10. So under about like $20 you could have a lot of games and emulators running on your PSP, and due to this memory card adapter, or if you want to listen to music or whatever on your PSP. Just some more tips and reminders before we even get started on the initial process. Before starting this modification to your PSP, please be sure to have your PlayStation Portable fully charged. So make sure it's fully charged. As well, you want to have your memory stick dual or your micro SD adapter. You want to basically have that, and you also want to back up any files off this because you're going to be formatting your memory card. So if you do care about any saved data or your pictures or whatever, me personally, I just got my PSP in today and I have nothing on my memory card, so I don't have no problem reformatting it. And just some other tips and reminders as well: if your PSP is not on 6.60 firmware, you have to update it. So I checked my PSP before doing this video and I'm on 6.31, so I'm going to show you guys on how to update that as well for this process. And here is the directory where you have to basically make the folder onto the PSP, so on your memory card or your micro SD adapter. So it's these directories stated here, and I'll probably talk about more of this in detail in the actual video before we even get started on the main stuff. But if you also using a PSP Go, the updates are basically the same, is they just name different. So yeah, it showcases that on the screen right here, but I'll go over it in more detail once that process is done for this stuff. But before I get into the actual process on how to do this, I just want to give a special thanks out today for developing Project Infinity, for we having a permanent custom firmware for the PSP, and as well anybody or any developers who helped with that project, all credit goes out to them. And I just want to give a special thanks out to my fans and supporters for helping me grow as a channel, and just giving me great ideas and tips along the way. As well, if you do need any help, don't forget I have my Discord. You could go ahead and join. I have a link in the description down below. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started on hacking our PlayStation Portable. Meet you guys on the PSP. Alrighty guys, so as shown here, we're basically on the PlayStation Portable right now. What we need to do is go ahead and scroll all the way over to our system settings, and then from here what we need to do is go ahead and reformat our memory stick. So if you do have any information that you want to back up, go ahead and back up that right now. If you're on the PSP Go, you can just go ahead and format your internal storage and make sure you have that backup via using a USB cable. But what we need to do now is just go ahead into format memory stick, and then just go ahead and hit yes over it. And basically once it reformats, it's just going to wipe all your data off. In my case, I didn't care since I didn't really have any information on this PSP since I just got it today. But once we do that, we're going to go ahead and go transfer to the PC, and then we're going to go ahead and install our software for this video. So meet you guys via on the PC.
A few moments later.
Alrighty guys, so since we're back to the PC, what we need to do is go ahead and then successfully install our CFW software files to our PSP. But before we even get started with that, I'm just going to state something about my games folder right here, because later on in this video, once we get our custom firmware successfully installed from our PSP, I'm going to be showcasing on how to run an emulator called RetroArch, and I have a few games that we're going to be testing, or just one game for the PSP. So I'm going to be showcasing on how to basically run one PSP game if it's an ISO or CSO file, and then as well I'm going to be showcasing on how to install RetroArch, which is an all-in-one emulator later. So if you're used to RetroArch on your Nintendo Switch, PS3, Vita, or PC, you already know what it could do. It's basically just an all-in-one emulator for game consoles like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and stuff like that. But with that being stated out the way, we're going to just hold off on this games folder right here. But the folder we're going to be focusing on is the PSP 6.61 Infinity folder right now. And I'm just going to go ahead and open it up. Of course, there will be a download to this in the link in the description below. But the first thing what we need to do is go ahead and plug in our PSP with our USB cable to our PC. So I already have that done via down here. Or if not, if you're using a micro SD adapter, then just go ahead and plug in your SD card however you do it, via like a USB adapter, or if you're on a laptop, you could just go ahead and plug in your micro SD via that way. But once you have your PSP contents right here, what we need to do is go ahead and take our PSP folder from our 6.61 Infinity and then just drag it and drop it basically to our PSP. So I already did some of the part just to test if this works, but all you would do is just copy that over as well. And then what we need to do now is go to our PSP folder via right here, right now we need to go ahead into Maker, and then in this folder right here where it says eboot.pbp, we need to go into our official firmware folder on this folder right here, and then depending on what device you have, of course we need to transfer over 2 files, basically the update files. So if you have a PSP Go, you basically need to transfer via right here. I don't have the PSP Go as shown in the video, I have a PSP-1000. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and transfer over these two basically these update files. Now, if you're in a situation like me, via that your PSP is not fully up to date via with 6.61, we need to update our system. I think mine is on 6.31, but we need to basically update it to 6.61. So what we need to do is go ahead and back out of one folder right here where it says game, and then make a new folder into your PSP, and cap with all caps, you need to just basically type in update, and then via right here you need to go into your update folder, go into 6.61 PBP, and then just drag it and drop it over. And then once that is fully done as well, you need to right click over it, rename it, and then type in eboot.pbp, because if you don't do it this way, it basically won't recognize it. And that goes the same for the PSP Go. So if you're trying to update your PSP Go to 6.61, you'll just drag it over, and then you have to rename it exactly as eboot.pbp. I know I stated it in the intro, but it may seem a little bit confusing, but it's not too hard for to go through that process. So once you have that, we could go back onto our PSP root via right here, and then if we go back into this folder, we could go ahead and choose our custom firmware of choice. So both of these are basically the same, but for this tutorial I'm just going to be doing the 6.61 LME 2.31, and then all you would have to do is just basically take all of these files and then just drag it and drop it to the root of your basically of the PSP. So we're basically done, and yeah, that's how easy and simple this part is via from the PC. So what we need to do now is just we could exit out of this folder, and now we need to basically safely eject out of our PSP, and then basically if you have a micro SD, but you could exit out of USB mode, and then from the PSP I'm going to showcase on the next steps on what to do. So meet you guys back onto the PSP. Alrighty guys, so since we're back onto our PlayStation Portable, what we need to do now is either determine two things. So basically if you scroll all the way to the left to system settings, and then scroll all the way down to your system information, you could tell if you're on version 6.61 or if you're on 6.31 or something lower than that. If you're on a lower firmware, first what you need to do is go into your memory stick and then run this program, the very first one that states PSP updated version 6.61. Basically when you run it, it may take a little second for it to do its thing, and then from there it will just ask you to install 6.61. Once you're on firmware version update 6.61, you could go ahead and recheck back into your system settings, and then like I shown here, you just go back into system information just to verify that you're on 6.61. What we need to do from there is go ahead into our memory stick and install LME Installer for 6.61, and you'll just run it like any other homebrew or just game for PSP. So basically once you install the LME Launcher as well for your very first time, it's basically already quote-unquote jailbroken or tethered, but it's not permanent, so every time you basically will have to reload it. So all you would have to do here is just go ahead and hit X on the modules, and then what it's doing now is just flashing the flash, and then right now it's going to basically restart our PSP. Hey guys, it's me, Nagato. Hope you guys are enjoying this video so far, and thank you guys for even watching up to this point. If you did like this video, please be sure to go ahead and check out my other videos for a multitude of other consoles such as the PS4, PlayStation Classic, the Vita, and PS3. With that being said, enjoy the video. Alrighty, so once your PSP fully rebooted, what we need to do now is go into our memory stick, and then we need to go scroll all the way down to LME Launcher for 6.61. So just go ahead and run it like a normal game. What will happen is basically your PlayStation Portable will reboot, and then it'll basically take a little second. So your PSP is going to do its thing. So it will say your model number of your PSP. I guess the 01 stands for the 1000 model. And then once that is fully done as well, once we go into our memory stick, what we need to do is scroll all the way down to 6.61 Infinity Firmware Builder. So that's the one we need to go to. And then from there, guys, once we basically are in 6.61, it will ask us to verify the hybrid firmware. So it's going to ask us to build it. And then what it's doing now is just basically verifying those 2 updates that we put into that folder, so 6.31 and also 6.61, and it's basically going to reboot our system. So I'm going to pause the video right here, and then once the process is finished, it's going to ask you to exit out and basically restart your PSP. Alrighty guys, so as shown here, here's the 6.61 Infinity firmware, and basically that whole setup is done. So what we need to do now is just go ahead and hit circle on our our PlayStation Portable, and then once we do this, it's basically going to restart our PlayStation Portable. So it may take a little second on the screen, but once your PSP is fully rebooted up as well as shown now, what we need to do is go back onto our PC, and then we need to go ahead and put our SD card in, or of course just use your USB-C, or not, USB-C, but your USB connector, and just connect it to your PSP, so we could go ahead and transfer over one file so we could flash our custom firmware. Alright guys, so since we're back onto our PC and you have your PlayStation Portable plugged in via with the USB cable, or using your SD card adapter or whatever, what we need to do is go ahead into our PSP folder right here, go into game, and then what we need to do is go into Maker. There's one file we need to go ahead and copy from this folder, which is called Data.MFC. So just go ahead, right click over it and go into copy, back out of it one time as shown here, and then you need to go into Flasher. Once you're in this Flasher folder, you need to go ahead and paste it. Once you have all those basically done and it's fully copied over, we're going to go ahead and go back to our PSP. So safely eject if you're using your SD card little reader on your PC. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and start to flash our firmware of choice. So meet you guys back for that process. Alrighty guys, so as shown here, basically we're back onto the PSP. So what we need to do now is go into our memory stick, scroll all the way down to basically LME Launcher, since our PSP has rebooted. So once that is fully done, it's going to reboot your PSP one more time, and then what we need to do is go into the Infinity Flasher. So it's doing its thing right now, shouldn't take too long, and what we can do is just go ahead and exit back out. Then it's going to reboot your PlayStation Portable. And then from here guys, what we need to do now is go into our memory stick again, and now we need to go ahead and scroll down to 6.61 Infinity Firmware Flasher. So go ahead and run that process as well. Alrighty guys, so once you're in 6.61 Infinity Firmware Flasher, what you want to do is just go ahead and then hit select or circle onto your PlayStation Portable. You could go ahead and read the terms of service, but now what you want to do is just go ahead and just wait for the process to do its thing. What I'm going to do here in a few is just go ahead and chop the video, since you know, I don't want you guys to see the whole installation because that's pretty boring. But once your PSP is fully finished doing its thing, what I'm going to do is just reset your PlayStation Portable, and then what should happen is you should get a blue screen of death. Don't worry, it's not going to break your system or anything, it's just a part of the process. Alright, so as shown here guys, basically it's finished installing the full process. So what will happen is basically your PlayStation Portable will reboot, and then you'll basically get the blue screen of death once you see the Sony Computer Entertainment regular boot screen. So as shown here, don't worry, your PSP is not broken. This is just a part of the process as stated before. What you need to do is just go ahead and either hit circle or X depending on where your PSP region is from, and then your screen will basically shut down for a second. And then what will happen is your PlayStation Portable will ask you to basically reset your settings and your language and stuff like that. So as shown here, I just went to English, and then I just set a regular time and whatnot for that process. Alrighty guys, so we're back onto the PlayStation Portable right now. What we need to do is just go ahead and check if we're on the custom firmware Infinity, so not themes. We need to go into system settings, go into system information, and if you see my version is 6.61 and it has the infinity symbol. Now once you verify that you have that and you've gone this far, what we need to do is go into our memory stick. Since this is not a full custom firmware yet, we need to scroll all the way down to LME Installer for 6.61 and just go ahead and run that like the normal program as well, and then we're just going to go ahead and reinstall that. So just waiting for it to do its thing. So as shown here is basically launching its update right now, and then just go ahead and press X to install the modules again, and then basically your PSP is going to reboot. Alright, since my PlayStation Portable restarted, as yours should as well on your end, what we need to do is go into memory stick one more time, scroll all the way down to LME Launcher for 6.61. Then your PlayStation Portable is going to restart again. So think about this as just like Henkaku, and then once your PSP has fully restarted, what we needed to do is go into the Infinity Bootloader configuration, and this will be the final last step. So go into memory stick again, go into Infinity Bootloader configuration, and this is going to allow us to have our custom firmware. So just waiting for that to basically pop up on my end. Alrighty, so once you're in Infinity Bootloader configuration, what we need to do now is go ahead and hit left on our PlayStation Portable D-pad, and what we need to do, if you don't have this already annotated, just go ahead and hit X right here, and then all we need to do from here is fairly simple. It's just go ahead and hit our home button and then quit out the game. Now, to test if this process is fully working, what we need to do on our PlayStation Portable is go ahead and hit on the select button to get our VSH menu, and then go ahead and go to shut down device. So once you basically shut down your device, you need to go ahead and reboot your PlayStation Portable, and then try to see if you got your VSH menu back onto that area. Alrighty guys, so as shown here, if I go to press my select button, I do have my VSH menu, and yeah, that's essentially you have a fully jailbroken PlayStation Portable in 2019. Now, in the next segment of this video, I'm going to be showcasing on how to install your PlayStation Portable games, and as well, I'm going to be showcasing on how to install emulators. So I'll meet you guys back on the PC for that part of the tutorial. Alrighty guys, so assuming that you did finish all of the steps and now you have a fully jailbroken PlayStation Portable, what we need to do now is go ahead and install some games onto our system. So right here I have my Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep file. This is the USA version. This method does work with any region of a PSP game, whether it be an ISO format or a .CSO, and as well it's fairly simple on how to do this. So once you have your PlayStation Portable connected as shown on the screen here, so I just got mine with the USB cable. If you have your micro SD card and then you put it in your micro SD reader on your laptop, or you just have one of those USB adapters and you see your PSP contents, all you have to do is just go ahead and create a new folder right here, unless you already have it onto your system, and just create a new folder by just right clicking, hitting new, and then just go ahead and name it as ISO as shown here. So once you have ISO in all capital letters, all you have to do is just drag and drop your game of choice, and then yeah, that's essentially how you basically just run PlayStation Portable games. So what I'm going to do here is just cut the video, and then right now I'm going to go ahead and transfer over to the PSP once this process has fully been finished. Alrighty guys, so as shown here, I'm back onto the PlayStation Portable, and my game of choice, Kingdom Hearts, has successfully transferred over. So I'm just going to go ahead and back out from my PSP. Now, once I go to my game folder right here, or my memory stick, and press onto it, as you see, here is Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the game. I'm going to also turn down the game's volume just due to copyright issues. I don't want, I'm not too sure if this audio will get compromised. I already know, like with Kingdom Hearts games, sometimes they flag me for my audio. But as shown here, here is the game running in real time. And as shown here, I don't have the game via my UMD. I'm not even too sure if this UMD works since I got this PlayStation Portable the other day. But yeah, as shown here, this is the game running all in real time. So yeah, here is the main menu of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. And now I'm just going to go ahead and back out of here. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you guys on how to basically run emulators on your PlayStation Portable as well. So I'll meet you guys back for that process. Alrighty guys, so we're back onto the PC right now. So I already showed you guys on how to install PlayStation Portable games. Now I'm going to be showing you on how to do the emulators for your PSP. So it's fairly simple. I'll have a .zip file, and this is basically the PSP emulator pack. I was going to do RetroArch, but once I was testing it a little bit earlier today, I noticed that like the Super Nintendo, it seemed pretty laggy as opposed to running SNES games on your PS3 or Vita. Also try to test out Sega Genesis games, and there was some like problems with like the audio, and that's usually kind of weird. So but I know that the single pack, or basically the standard emulations that are not all compiled into one and they're from other developers, they mostly work on the PlayStation Portable. So as shown here, I have my PSP emulator pack, and then if I go into it, we'll have one folder called PSP, and then you will basically just drag this to your PlayStation Portable via from connecting it to your PC. But right here where it says game, this is basically all of the emulators. So Nestor J, I believe, is NES. Not too sure which this one is right here. There is GPSP, that is for the Game Boy Advance. Pico Drive, that's basically for the Sega Genesis, Mega Drive, and stuff like that. SNES 9XTYL, this is for the Super Nintendo, and Daedalus X64 is for the 64. And it's pretty simple on how to do this. You just basically each emulator, if you go to their folders, if you go into the ROM section, it'll basically have you could dump your games in. So I already did a couple of them just to showcase on the screen. So GPSP, if I go into my GBA folder, ROM, you'll basically see some of my Game Boy Advance games I put in there, and such and so forth. But yeah, I guess y'all guys get the picture for that. So once you basically put your games into your certain directories under the ROMs folder for its respective emulator, what we need to do is go ahead and back onto the PlayStation Portable, either plug it in via with our USB, and then just connect it to our system. So that's what I'm doing here right now. So in a few seconds, basically you heard my PlayStation Portable connecting, and now you see it on the screen. What we need to do is go into our PSP game folder right here. So we can just drag this to the side and then go into PSP right here, and it's just drag and drop all of the contents via to this one area. So it may take a little while since there is quite a lot of image files and also ROMs that needs to be transferred over. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video via right here. But once that process is fully finished, we're going to go back onto our PlayStation Portable, and we're going to go test out some emulators. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. So meet you guys back on the PSP. Alrighty guys, so as shown here, I'm basically back onto my PlayStation Portable. What we need to do now is just go to our memory stick right here, so we can see if our emulators are in here. So let me go ahead and scroll down. But as you see here, I have my Super Nintendo one, my Sega Genesis, my NES, my Game Boy Color, the N64, and also the Game Boy Advance. So we're gonna go ahead and just test out the Super Nintendo one right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and run this program just to see if our emulators are working. Alrighty, so you get this little cool screen, or basically little boot up screen of like a little Super Mario World thing. I think it's pretty cool how they implemented that. Let me go ahead and turn it down a little bit. But yeah, it's fairly simple. All you got to do is just for this one, just select on your game of choice. I'm gonna go ahead and select Super Mario World, and that's one of my favorite games of all time for the Super Nintendo. All you would have to do is just go ahead and hit circle, and then yeah, here is me playing Super Nintendo on my PlayStation Portable. We could go ahead and back out from here just by hitting back onto the home button, and then just go ahead and hitting circle out of that. And then once that process is fully finished as well, what we could do is go to another emulator of our choice. I'm going to go ahead and try out Sega Genesis just for this process as well. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to showcase this. But yeah, essentially this is how you run emulators onto your PlayStation Portable. So from here, just gotta go ahead and hit any game of choice by hitting circle. I'm just gonna go ahead and run Sonic Hedgehog 2 since that was the first game that popped up. But yep, here is Sonic the Hedgehog 2 playing on my PlayStation Portable. If you guys did like this video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below for more content just like this. And if you do want any help on how to set this up, you can feel free to join my Discord. Thank you guys for watching my full tutorial. Peace.